A referendum on whether Alberta should separate from Canada is one step closer today. The province's election agency has approved a citizen-led petition to gather signatures on the issue.
A group promoting Saskatchewan's independence from Canada. The group's president, Brad Williams, focuses on Western alienation and what he says are the economic and political benefits of separation.
Saskatchewan just became ground zero for Canada's existential crisis. While the world focused on Alberta's separatist movement, Saskatchewan's independence push has been quietly gaining unprecedented momentum, and it's happening in coordination with forces in Washington, D.C. that see Western Canada as America's economic future. President Trump has been relentlessly pushing for Canadian annexation since December 2024, calling Canada the cherished 51st state and suggesting provinces could avoid tariffs by joining the United States.
It's a last-minute Christmas gift for a movement seeking Alberta independence. Its petition for a referendum on separating from Canada has been approved.
A lot of people in Canada are liking becoming our beautiful, cherished 51st state. They'll have to pay much lower taxes. They'll have the ultimate security. You know, they don't pay very much for security right now because they rely on us, which is really unfair to us. They make cars that we could make, and they send them back into the United States. They make a lot of things, including the sending of oil and everything. We don't need their oil. We don't need their lumber. In fact, we're going to be freeing up, and I've asked Howard Lutnick to get that done with Lee.
And while 90% of Canadians reject becoming the 51st state, according to Angus Reid polling, that 10% who support it are concentrated almost entirely in Alberta and Saskatchewan, the two provinces that together make up exactly 10% of Canada's population. This isn't coincidence. This is a coordinated political movement that could literally tear Canada apart. This is happening right now, December 2025, and the implications are staggering. Because if Saskatchewan and Alberta move forward with independence referendums in 2026, and both provinces have made that timeline official, Canada as we know it ceases to exist. I'm going to break down exactly what's happening. The separatist movements, the US coordination, the polling numbers, the political maneuvering. Because this isn't just about Western grievances anymore. This is about whether Canada survives as a nation. But first, if you want to understand what's really happening to Canadian unity without the Ottawa spin, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. Your subscription helps us keep doing this investigative reporting. Alright, let's get into what's actually happening. Polling indicates 79% support for independence among rural areas of Saskatchewan. 79%. That's not a fringe movement. That's an overwhelming majority of rural Saskatchewan wanting out of Canada. And rural Saskatchewan controls the provincial legislature, 35 rural seats versus 26 urban seats. Rural voters have a firm majority over parliament within the province, which means if rural Saskatchewan wants independence, they have the political power to make it happen. The Saskatchewan United Party, a populist movement that placed third in the previous provincial election, is leading the charge. And they're not just talking about secession from Canada. They're explicitly discussing joining the United States as the 51st state. March 1st, 2025, the Buffalo Party organized a mock ballot in Regina on the question of joining the United States. Protesters shouted "Never 51" outside the German club. Inside, Tim Kasprick sang the Star-Spangled Banner at the top of his lungs, dressed in an American flag polo shirt as Timothy Trump. The result? 55% of attendees voted for Saskatchewan to become the 51st state, more than half, at an event that drew enough attention to require security guards and protesters. But here's what makes this different from previous separatist movements. Trump is actively encouraging it. Trump stated at the World Economic Forum that Canada could avoid tariffs by becoming a US state. The comment was met with shocked gasps in the hall. In North Carolina, Trump claimed that under American control, Canadians would get lower taxes and better health coverage. At a press conference in the Oval Office on February 26, 2025, Trump acknowledged that his campaign to turn Canada into the cherished, beautiful 51st state could run first through Alberta and Saskatchewan. Think about that. The President of the United States is explicitly identifying which Canadian provinces to target first. That's not rhetoric. That's strategy. And it's working. According to Professor Raymond Blake, a history professor at the University of Regina, if Alberta and Saskatchewan made a concerted effort to leave, it could unravel the basis of the Canadian state. It's a very serious threat, he said. Now let's talk about the economic drivers. Because this isn't just about political grievances, it's about money. Saskatchewan's oil and natural gas deposits make the province a key driver of Canada's energy sector. Uranium from northern Saskatchewan powers nuclear energy production around the world. As the tech sector drives global energy demand, Saskatchewan's uranium production will grow into a multi-billion-dollar industry within years. The province is also home to vast reserves of potash, producing more of this critical agricultural ingredient than any other area on Earth. Saskatchewan isn't some backwater province. It's an energy and resource powerhouse, and it's being bled dry by federal equalization payments. Peter Zeihan argued in his 2014 book, The Accidental Superpower, that Alberta, and by extension Saskatchewan, would benefit from joining the United States. He wrote, "Right now, every man, woman, and child in Alberta pays $6,000 more into the national budget than they get back. Alberta is the only province that is a net contributor. By 2020, the number will exceed $20,000 per person, $40,000 per taxpayer. That will be the greatest wealth transfer in per capita terms in the Western world." Saskatchewan faces similar dynamics. Resource-rich provinces subsidizing the rest of Canada, and they're tired of it. Now let's talk about the political maneuvering, because Saskatchewan's government is walking a tightrope. March 20th, 2025. Saskatchewan MLAs voted unanimously that Canada remains an independent country, passing a motion confirming Canada will never become the 51st state. Sounds like unity, right? Wrong. The motion was originally introduced by the Saskatchewan NDP to condemn President Trump's annexation remarks. But Premier Scott Moe and the Saskatchewan Party government amended the motion to remove any mention of Trump by name. Why? Because Moe didn't want to antagonize Trump. He said politicians need to dial back the rhetoric. The motion passed unanimously only after removing any condemnation of Trump's actions. That's not standing up for Canada. That's hedging bets. NDP leader Carla Beck was furious. When someone goes after your team, sometimes you drop the gloves. Condemning Trump was essential to standing up for Saskatchewan industries. But Moe wouldn't do it, and here's why. He knows a significant portion of his rural base supports either independence or joining the United States. The Saskatchewan NDP has been calling on Premier Moe to denounce unified grassroots after their leader opened the door to Saskatchewan becoming Trump's 51st state. NDP MLA Nicole Young stated, "Suggesting Saskatchewan become the 51st American state is dangerous and it will kill jobs and investment. We could see whole head offices vanish. This all plays right into Donald Trump's hands. He wants to divide us so he can dominate us." She continued, "I am proud to be Canadian, and that goes the same for my 26 colleagues. I really have to start asking why it's so hard for Scott Moe to say the same. That's the question, isn't it? Why is it so hard for Saskatchewan's premier to explicitly condemn annexation talk? Because he's reading the polling. And the polling shows massive rural support for leaving Canada. Now let's talk about what's happening in Alberta, because Saskatchewan isn't moving alone. July 5th, 2025. Mitch Sylvester submitted a citizen initiative petition to Elections Alberta for Alberta independence. The proposed question, "Do you agree that the province of Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province in Canada?" December 2025. The Alberta legislature passed Bill 14, effectively undoing judicial review of the Alberta Prosperity Project's proposed referendum question. The Alberta Prosperity Project expects to begin gathering signatures in January 2026. May 2025, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said she would hold a referendum on provincial separation in 2026 if citizens gather the required signatures. She made it easier to trigger referendums with passage of Bill 54. So here's the timeline. January 2026. Alberta starts gathering signatures for independence referendum. Saskatchewan separatists watching closely. If Alberta gets momentum, Saskatchewan follows. And Trump is actively encouraging both provinces. Now let's talk about what happens if this actually proceeds. According to Angus Reid polling, 10% of all Canadians support joining the United States as the 51st state. But that 10% is concentrated in Alberta and Saskatchewan, which together represent exactly 10% of Canada's population. Among Americans, 25% support annexing Canada, 49% oppose it, and 26% are unsure. That's not overwhelming American support, but it's not overwhelming opposition either. If Alberta and Saskatchewan held referendums in 2026 and voted to leave Canada, what happens next? Scenario 1. They attempt to form independent countries. But as Peter Zeihan noted, small independent nations surrounded by larger powers face security challenges. Who defends them? Who guarantees their borders? Scenario 2. They immediately negotiate to join the United States. Trump has made clear he'd welcome them. Republican-controlled Congress likely approves. 2 resource-rich, conservative-leaning states join the Union. Scenario 3. Ottawa refuses to recognize the referendums, declares them unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled in favor of the legality of provinces being able to declare independence. Constitutional crisis ensues. Any of these scenarios destroys Canada as we know it. If Alberta and Saskatchewan leave, Quebec immediately triggers its own separation referendum. They've been waiting for this moment for 50 years. With Western Canada gone, Quebec has zero incentive to stay. British Columbia would face enormous pressure to join the United States simply for economic survival. Cut off from Eastern Canada, lacking access to markets, surrounded by American states, what choice would they have? Manitoba would be geographically isolated. The Maritimes would be economically devastated. Ontario would be left holding a rump Canada that nobody wanted. According to Don Kesselman, a 78-year-old Alberta native who participated in a ceremony pledging loyalty to the United States, "I take this obligation freely, so help me God." His eyes glistened with emotion. "I feel very strongly about it. The words go to your heart." That's not political theater. That's genuine belief that Canada has failed and the United States represents salvation. Now let's talk about Trump's strategy, because this isn't random. Trump announced 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods in February 2025, then urged Canada to become the cherished 51st state. Economic pressure combined with political enticement. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was caught on a hot mic on February 7, 2025, acknowledging the threat as a real thing. In the closed-door meeting, sources stated Trudeau labeled Trump's moves as originating from interest in gaining access to Canada's critical mineral resources. That's what this is really about. Resources. Saskatchewan's uranium, Alberta's oil, Canada's critical minerals. The United States wants direct access without dealing with Ottawa, and Western Canadian separatists are willing to give it to them. Here's the bottom line as we close out 2025. 79% of rural Saskatchewan supports independence. 55% voted for joining the United States at a March 2025 mock ballot. Trump explicitly identified Alberta and Saskatchewan as entry points for annexation. Alberta begins gathering referendum signatures in January 2026. Premier Moe refuses to condemn Trump's annexation talk. 10% of all Canadians support joining the United States, concentrated in these 2 provinces. If Alberta's referendum succeeds in late 2026, Saskatchewan follows within months. Quebec triggers separation. Canada disintegrates. Make sure you're subscribed because we're tracking every development in 2026, every signature gathered, every poll released, every political maneuver, because this is the story that determines whether Canada exists as a nation. The separatists are organized, Trump is encouraging them, the economic grievances are real, the timeline is set. 2026 could be the year that can bring panic in Canada. This story is far from over, it's just beginning. Stay tuned.